Okay, while Cindy's getting mic'd up, I'm really thrilled to be able to present the new CEO of TreePeople. Cindy, you've been there how many months?
Since March.
Since March. And she's got this incredible background in advocacy, the first Latina to be elected to the California legislature?
No. I was
Close.
the youngest woman elected to the legislature, but yeah.
Youngest. There we go. And Cindy's going to talk to us about advocacy. Last year, people were asking us about advocacy and what we could do to be better advocates. And people talked to us about making videos and that sort of thing. And I was talking to Cindy, and she said it can be a lot simpler than that. So the idea is that Cindy's going to tell us how simple it can be for you to go in and talk to your elected because she's been on the receiving end. And what does she want to hear on her side of it? So you can stand anywhere you want.
Okay. Well, good morning to everybody, and welcome to LA, those of you that are not from LA. Is it anybody's first time in LA, or has everybody already been here before? Everybody's already been here. Okay, so you know how wonderful this city is. For those of you that have been, I'm a native Angelino. I have lived here my whole life, and I like to spend weekends trying to continue to get to know LA, because there's just so much about this city that is phenomenal. From the mountains to the urban core to the downtown, obviously, areas, all these wonderful suburbs and neighborhoods, and it's just really incredible. And people from all over the world, right? I think everybody knows there's over 180 different countries that are represented in LA alone. So I hope you do find some time to take some time to visit us, spend time with us in the city. So welcome again to everybody, and thank you for being here. I just became a California Relief Board member, and I'm so thrilled to be part of it, because when you really look at the most pressing issues that are confronting us today, the issue of climate change and climate adaptation, climate mitigation, and how do we make our communities more climate resilient is really at the top of global issues, right? Not just in LA, not just in the state of California, but really all over the world. And so what we're doing at California Relief, and all of us, what every single one of us is doing, and thank you for the work that you're doing at the local level, is really about how do we make our communities more climate resilient, and planting trees, taking care of trees, making sure that trees survive. That is such a key part of ensuring that communities are healthier, that they're greener, more climate resilient. Because if we don't do anything about it, the threats are real. We all know about that, right? We know that there are real threats on public health, on human life, on the environment, if we do nothing to adapt and mitigate the impacts, the threats that we see from climate change. So anyways, we wanted to spend some time, excuse me, we wanted to spend some time talking about how can we be most effective as activists, grassroots activists, as researchers or scientists, policymakers, community members, whatever role we currently have, how can we be most effective with those that are our policymakers? So the part of lobbying, right, and getting policy changes done at the federal, at the state, and the local level is so key to making sure that California prioritizes climate mitigation and climate adaptation, and sees urban forestry, mountain restoration work, sees the trees as a key part of that solution. When approaching legislators, as we all know, it's just there's thousands, there's 2,000 bills that members of the legislature vote on every year. So when you go in to talk to a member of the legislature, we always have to assume, some are very familiar, but a lot of people are not going to have this as a top of their list. So before I get into the details of that, I do want to talk a little bit about, just so that you know, my background. Like I said, native from Los Angeles, was always really involved in the community. As I'm sure many folks here were, growing up, it's what can I do to make my community better? I had the ability to go to UCLA. Was very active as a student activist at UCLA, and during that time, that's really when I started coming across members of the legislature and started to have to figure out how is it that we talk to our policymakers. And even though I've been doing this for a long time, I have to admit, I still get nervous at times going to talk to members of the legislature or elected officials or policymakers or their staff, because sometimes you feel like, I don't know if I'm going to have as much information as they have, or I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to convince them, or this issue is really important to me, and it's going to be really hard because I don't know that, I know that that person isn't where I'm at, or doesn't agree with me completely, or I'm not sure where they're at. So, being a little bit nervous is okay, right? So, anyways, so let's just talk about how we go through the process. So the first thing, has everybody here lobbied a member of the legislature? Anybody? Everyone has? Okay, so have people, who has it? A few of us probably. Okay, so let's just start from the very beginning, right? Elected officials are human, right? They're like us. You're talking to someone that is just like us. So in coming to the realization to say, okay, I need to spend time with my elected official, one of the first things you do is you do background on that elected official, right? This is my best place to start, is with your local state assembly member or state senator, if we're lobbying as we are all doing on state policy, and figure out, who is my state senator and who's my state assembly member. So figuring who that individual is not very difficult. You literally could go online, put your city in, and figure out who this person is. Read their biography, because usually in the biography, the person will tell you the thing that they want you to know about them, right? Where they grew up, do they have a family, what are their interests, what are their priority areas, and in there you'll see whether or not someone cares about the environment, right? If somebody cares about the environment, they will say, I care about the environment and I've been a champion in these issues. The biography is simple, it tells you a lot. Then you start going into their bills, their legislation, right? Figure out what are the priority legislations. What does Cindy care about this year? And you could look at my bills and you will see, if I was a member of the legislature, you can see what bills I'm carrying. If I happen to carry bills that are related, again, to the environment, that's kind of your hook into that person, right? And then you figure out, is there anything on their website that talks about local projects that they're doing, right? So the first thing is, again, it's like any relationship that you have, you want to get to know that person. If you have opportunities, sometimes on their websites or by calling their staff, you'll see what activities they actually have going on in the community. As organizations, I think it's really important for us to incorporate the elected official into the work that we're doing, right? So if we're doing tree plantings, as we do, all of us, I'm sure, like tree care events, tree planting events, that is the easiest way to reach out to someone and say, I want you to join me, right? The elected official or the office will love to do that, right? Because that is what elected officials do. We work in the community, we are part of the community, we want to be part of activities. So that's the best way to, before you even go in to ask anybody for anything, build the relationship, right? If you have those opportunities. If your groups respectively are not doing events, figure out, again, what events are they doing and go be supportive or go and attend town halls, community cleanups, whatever it may be. So once you get to the point where you decide, okay, I have a reason, and I have a reason to go talk to my elected official, which all of us do, right? We all have reasons to talk to them. So every single one of us has a responsibility to go in there and talk to our members of the legislature. So before you go in there, what do? You understanding, okay, who controls the calendar? Elected officials do not control their calendar. So if you see them at an event, you see them somewhere and you say, I want to have a meeting with you, I want to put something on your calendar, I can guarantee you, you will not get the meeting that day because you have no control of your calendar. The elected official will have somebody that controls their calendar. So send in a meeting request. Best way to get a meeting request, put it down on paper, right? Send an email. This is the scheduler, and here's the staff that is assigned to urban forestry issues, mountain restoration work, climate issues, environmental issues. Send a note, a written note that says, I'm Cindy Montañez, I'm CEO of TreePeople. I would like to talk to Senator or Assembly Member X on this issue. If you have the time, put together a really short briefing document, no more than a page, right? I want to talk to this assembly member about AB, 1, 2, 3, by this author on this topic. Why? Because that's going to go, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of meeting requests that come in to someone's office. So they have to decide, okay, which ones are the ones that I need to take. In that request, write who's going to be attending with you. People from the local district are the most important, right? Those are the most important folks. So put together a coalition of folks that can go with you. Coalition building is so important. If I'm in Sacramento, I'd also love to be able to partner up, not just with people from LA, but other parts of the state, right? So once you do that, then you're in there. It helps the staff member, be prepared. So then when you're in the meeting, so many people I would have come lobby me, and there was never a personal attempt to even have a personal relationship, connect with me. It was just like, deep into the issues, very technical. And I can tell you that you have to always start off with, hi, smile. It's great to be here. I love what you're doing. Compliment them on. If you know that there's something good that they're working on, I really respect you or appreciate the fact that you are working on this bill. And I want to talk to you now about my particular bill that we're here to talk about, because this is why it's important to me, this is why it's important to the organization, and most importantly, this is why it's important to your district, right? People want to know about how does it impact, right? The elected official needs to know how does it impact my city. So once, excuse me. So once you begin that initial conversation, is keep the briefing to like 10 minutes max, right? It is easy for us to talk and talk and talk. Most of the time, they're 20-minute meetings. So if you could keep your issue down to 10 minutes, and that is hard, right? It's always really difficult to do, but in 10 minutes, lay out what it is that you want, and then allow for a conversation, right? What's their response to that issue, and then start having a conversation. Be very specific in your ask. This is where I would feel where people failed the most, was not asking me, can you do X, Y, or Z? Most of the time is, we want to know whether or not you can vote for this bill. Or we want to make sure, we want to have your support on these amendments. Or can you attend this event? Or can you help us with funding? Or can you do X, Y, or Z? Be really specific with what your ask is going to be and what you want to get out of that meeting. Otherwise, you be in a situation where it's a great meeting, everything is, feels good, people are smiling and having a good time, and you're talking about everything, and you leave, and you didn't accomplish what it was that you really wanted to get. So be really, really specific with your ask. It may at times feel, I would notice that there's times when people felt a little bit like awkward about asking, but we just expect it, right? And in many ways, as you're so busy, a lot of things are going on, that you just kind of want the person to get to the point as quickly as possible, right? What is it that you need me to help? Because I took this meeting because I want to help you, right? So make it as easy as possible. Again, I can't stress enough how important coalition building is. And especially if you could find non-traditional allies, right? Those are the most powerful meetings. And knowing who you're talking to, right? Some of us in LA, we probably represent very liberal Democrats who are on the natural, very environmentally oriented. Not everybody here is going to have the same, the same kind of immediate response. You may have a more traditional Republican, more conservative member that is your elected official. Trees, the environment, climate change, I think especially trees, nonpartisan issue from my perspective. It is everyone, right? And I have seen that when I've testified in committees, and I've seen that when we've been lobbying. It doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican, there is strong support for protecting our forest from fires that we're starting to see more and more. People are beginning to understand the realities of the drought. There are real, everyone wants to see their communities have more trees. So it is our issues, I feel very strongly, are issues that we could get both Democrats and Republicans to support, but understanding again where the perspective, the political perspective of the person you're talking to is really important. once you have your meeting, following up is so important, where you send an email as soon as you possibly can to the staff person you talk to or the member of the legislature that you talk to, as soon as you possibly can, and stay in contact with them. Even if it's just to say thank you, just do it. Just say thank you and give them your contact, again, offer yourself as a resource. And then within a couple of weeks, if you still haven't heard anything, follow up. Follow up. People like to get the follow-up. They like to get the emails. They like to get, because again, we have thousands of issues that we're working on. So it's not that a person may not, it's not that they don't care if they haven't gotten your response. You'll bring that issue back into somebody's mind, and again, gives you another opportunity to continue to build that relationship. One of the things that I do want to point out is a lot of times folks want to talk directly to the member of the legislature, the elected official, whether it's the member of the legislature, the city council member, the mayor. The staff is so important. I have gotten more work done with staff than with direct members of the legislature. I limit my time when I talk to them, because when I talk to them, it's going to be a big ask. I build relationships with the staff and try to build deep relationships with them. You will see, as I have seen, when I was a member of the State Assembly, a lot of the staff that I worked with, 10 years later, they are now members of the legislature, right? These are people. Ricardo Lara was a staff to Marco Fireball, and today Ricardo Lara chairs the Senate Appropriations Committee. Miguel Santiago worked on my staff. Today he's a key member of the State Assembly. People like Kevin De Leon, we were student activists together, right? Way back. 20 plus years ago. Today, obviously, he's Senate Pro Tem. So relationships with the staff is so important. Do not overlook that. Too many people feel disappointed when their meeting is with the staff member instead of the member of the legislature. You will probably get more work done by having that conversation. And it's direct staff, and then it's also committee staff. Because the committee staff, those are the folks that are writing the analysis. Those are the ones that are writing the amendments. Very, very important to acknowledge that. So anyways, we have an opportunity, I think, together. I'd love this to see everyone who's part of California Relief. We have an amazing opportunity because even though most of us are not there every day, we do have California Relief. And I've spent time with Chuck, with Cindy, brilliant individuals. They know the process. They know the individuals. They know how to get things done. So if you are going up to Sacramento, I absolutely recommend getting in contact with Chuck or Cindy and letting them know and offering to go to meetings with them. It is a wealth of knowledge, deep relationships. Again, understanding, knowing the process, they could be really helpful. That's how all of us are going to be really effective and successful with the goals that we're trying to get done. The last thing I want to say is our agency partners, right? Those are the folks that are working in state agencies and local agencies. Incredible partners. To be able to go in there and have the respective agencies on our side, or understanding what their needs are, and for us to be advocates for them, that is also really key. Excellent example today is CAL FIRE, right? We've got John Melvin here, who we all, I think, know. Here is someone who, again, like Chuck and Cindy, have this deep understanding. I have never met or talked to any individuals that have a deeper understanding of these forestry issues as someone like John does. So calling, reaching out, being helpful, us standing with our agency partners is really important, because that's how we continue to grow our movement and ensure that we get more resources for all of us to be successful. So anyways, just to wrap up again, is like there are lobbying. It's like if you have those feelings initially, right, that maybe you're a little bit nervous, it's okay. Once you get into the meeting, once you are having a conversation, once you start building the relationships, like you'll actually see it's really fun, right? Even when you don't get what you want, it's really fun because you're building relationships and never giving up. I have passed, bills, and I have gotten them through the legislature, and they have been vetoed, and I have passed bills again through the legislature, and they've been vetoed, and I've passed bills again, and then finally it gets signed. So some of this stuff will take years to get done. So just, when bills don't move forward or amendments don't get done, funding doesn't come through, it's okay, just hang in there, because there's always a next year, and there's a year after that, and eventually, if you don't give up, things will get done. So I do want to leave a couple of minutes for questions, to see if anyone has any questions. But again, it's such a pleasure to meet folks here. I look forward to getting to know people more directly. We at TreePeople are a resource. We've been around for 43 years. Andy Lipkis, who you'll meet tomorrow, we are so blessed to have him as our founder. We've planted over 2.5 million trees. Rachel's our director of forestry. Over 2.5 million trees have been planted by TreePeople. We do a lot of environmental education. Over 2 million kids have come through our environmental education programs. So we are a resource and want to be a resource to anyone. I think yesterday they told me in the last year and a half we've had over 11,000 volunteers. So that's pretty amazing, the work that the team, there's several TreePeople staff here. I mean, the work that we do is incredible because of the volunteers and the staff that we have. So having said that, any questions? I do want to leave, like I said, a few minutes for questions, and happy to answer anything. Yes.
Hold on. Could you come up to the mic, please? Sorry, we're going to make you get up and move.
How might you approach a councilman and his staff who don't appear to have any interest in trees?
Okay. Council members, I talked a lot about the state legislature. The local elected officials clearly are just important. I mean, we're getting a lot of stuff done because we have a mayor in LA that cares about, urban forestry, and we have a council that cares about that, and there's city plans that is funded by one of our departments to do more urban forestry. But sometimes you do get elected officials that are not as open to our issues. It's building relationships and taking them out to see both the positive and the negative. The negatives is, showing them if trees are just not being taken care of well, going out there and showing them the negative results and negative impacts of trees not being taken care of. Or, if there are no trees that are planted, what are the real impacts of that? I mean, we're doing research, for example, now on urban cooling, and you're starting to see that there is a direct health impact on people, right, by not having a healthy tree canopy in communities. Don't give up, because it may seem initially that someone doesn't care, but the more time you spend with an individual, if nothing else, there'll be a mutually respectful relationship that gets established. And trust me, there will be that day when that person will be there for you. I have had my colleagues or former colleagues vote against me over and over and over and over and over. And there was that time when I said to them, I really need you on this. I need you to help me with this. And it was because I had these long-term relationships that I got someone who you would have never would have thought would have supported me on a bill, voted to get legislation out. So do not give up on anything, and try to keep as many positive relationships as you possibly can, because eventually that person will be there for you. Yes.
What do you think? Is it possible to pass a carbon tax in the form of trees? Planting, like sponsor funding,
So
paying with trees.
I'm not sure if it's going to be a carbon tax on trees.
I mean, for polluters, for people who, sell gasoline, or like energy producers like Edison from coal, to account, and of course everybody knows about the carbon tax. It's a very controversial issue,
Yeah.
and it's a partisan issue, I guess. So here is an idea to have it in the form, let's say, balancing emission with sequestration demonstration by trees.
Yeah, I mean, it's, there's going to be a lot of ideas, obviously, how we move forward with our cap and trade system or, AB 32, post AB 32. How do we continue to have, ensure the greatest reduction in greenhouse gas emissions? So there's going to be a lot of proposals as there is on how we actually do that. The carbon tax will continue to be something that the legislature, looks at and at the federal level. I think it's going to be a little bit difficult in the short run, but it's, obviously all ideas are continue to be on the table. Other questions? Yes.
Actually, I had a thought. It was an excellent talk. More often than not, when we've had to do it at the federal level as well as state, we found that actually these folks are awfully busy. They might ask you, gee, can you tell me more about it? Because I didn't know. And I think at that point, we almost have to become educators and teachers, which means we have to know our stuff real code. And as you pointed out, do it in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make note, that's more than just relationships of a long term. There's a real short term, get it into their attention span.
Yes, exactly. I mean, really good point that, it isn't at the top of most elected officials' priority list, right? So therefore, because you are working on healthcare and the economy and education and transportation and criminal justice, and we could go down the whole list of issues that we're working on, we become an incredible resource if we do this right? Which is having those relationships, because that staff person or that member of the legislature or your local city council member or your mayor is going to say, I'm going to call TreePeople because, and this is what happens to us a lot, right? We're going to call TreePeople because, we know that they have a depth of, experts and people on their staff or relationships. If we don't have the answer, we could get other partners to help us. So you become a resource to the elected official. It's where where we want to be. Right? It's where we want to be as California Relief, and it's where we all want to be with our respective organizations, is that the elected official knows that they could reach out to us because we're going to have information, we're going to be honest, we're not going to be biased. We could express, obviously, our interest, but we're going to continue to be objective providers of information based on policy, research, science to help guide good policy making. So positioning yourself as a partner is so important. So yes, it's not just the relationship, but it's also being the partner, the person who is, quote unquote, does the educating. Because, just as we are, understaffed, so is the office of the elected. Because again, we are reviewing thousands of bills. So that one staff member is going through hundreds and hundreds of bills. So if they have the ability to say, again, I'm going to call Cindy because there's this bill, I know her, I have this relationship with her, I'm going to call her. That's the place, that is exactly the place we want to be as, California Relief and individually with our respective organizations. So excellent point. Other questions, or is that it? Or any other questions? No? Okay, I mean, I just want to wrap up. We are all in a critical time right now. I mean, this is a time when we have to be as strong as possible. Thank you to Chuck and to Cindy, the board members of California Relief. I think that we're just going to see tremendous growth because our forests are dying, and now it's by the millions. There is real impacts because of climate change. We have to green up our neighborhoods. There's equity issues that are involved. There's so much that's involved right now that we are at a time when we have to be strong, well-organized, collaborative, work with each other, push each other, share information, because the state of California needs us to be successful. And I am going to be here and happy to answer more questions and again, offer my partnership too as TreePeople to be as strong of an ally and partner that we possibly can to everyone that's here. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.